Okay, here we go again. Another conversation on TPL Media. Don't forget to subscribe, tell a friend, visit tplmedia.ca, as we are now officially in the midst of the launch of a new app and a new website. Look for that over the holidays. Joining me today for the chat about Does Carney Even Care is our very own Jim Lang.
Hello.
How's
How
it
are
going,
you,
pal?
Yeah. Happy holidays. Welcome to December, everybody.
By the way, a shout out to Doug Kirkwood in our podcast production sales department.
Great guy, beleaguered Vikings fan. I feel for him.
Yeah, there is that about him. But
he's got a license plate. He drives around with his shame. He wears it proudly.
He does. He does. You know what? It's one of those things. He's put the time in.
Yes.
But if they ever do go to the Super Bowl, we're all going to have to chip in and make sure he gets there.
Oh, yeah.
These are his glasses. I don't know what the hell happened.
But Doug does great work, and I don't know how a man loses his glasses. Now, I got to tell you, if Mark Carney was here, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, why do you think so? Do you think he'd be like a little judgmental about me losing my glasses?
Apparently, the word is that he manages the Liberal Party like a Fortune 500 CEO. Big surprise considering his background. He's demanding, hard driving, and patient, and he has strict rules on dress and decorum within the Prime Minister's office.
Who's your tie?
I'm not in the PMO office, so I don't have to worry about it, do I now?
You know, Jim, I have to, first of all, I want to say thanks to you because you and I had a conversation before the show that just blew my mind. And we're going to go deeper on this.
Sure.
But the power that is in the PM's Privy Council, and then even more so the power of the clerk of the Privy Council.
Well, I think most Canadians don't understand that when you're prime minister, there is a cabal of people around you, this cadre of men and women, and both public, voted on, and behind the scenes and appointed, that run the prime minister's office, ergo run the country.
Yeah.
And we just had a story today where the government gave $200 million to Ukraine to buy more weapons. You know, this comes a week after a story came out that young recruits are quitting the Canadian military because of lack of proper housing and lack of medical care.
Yeah.
So I'm fine for supporting Ukraine, but maybe some of those millions of dollars could help use some of the current members of the armed forces who need a better place to live.
Yeah, and at a time where, reports are coming out that the Canadian military, everything from having to share weapons in the field to bad housing and bad health care, it's a bad look. And this is one of the things. So I don't ask this question with just in a glib manner.
Yeah.
Really, the question has come back to me so many times in the last 2 weeks. Does Carney even care? And so now I want to ask the question. And I found sort of four quintessential proofs myself, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
He cares in his way. Think about Mark Carney went to Harvard, then he went to Oxford. 15 years at Goldman Sachs, which is a high-end financial institution. Ran the Bank of Canada, ran the Bank of England, and was the vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management, who manages $1 trillion in assets around the world, in Canada and other countries. His whole life, from the time he left Edmonton to go to post-secondary and working up the corporate world, has been acting and treating people like he's been treated in the corporate world, demanding, hard driving, impatient, doesn't run by a clock, has very strict rules. I mean, recently there was the Canadian Press Gallery dinner, and it was actually quite funny. Doug Davies, the interim leader of the NDP, was very funny. I got to admit, a lot of people, even a lot of hardcore liberals, were quite happy how Pierre Poilievre joked with This Hour's 22 Minutes and some of the humor. Mark Carney, you don't see clips because he's not built for joking around. Like Doug Ford goes to a tractor pull in Tillsonburg. Mark Carney is not comfortable doing that. He's comfortable getting on the Canadian Can Force One and flying to an international summit and sitting down and doing business in the big business world. That's what he's done for 35 years. That's his comfort level, and expects the people around him to support him to get that job done. So it's a real 180 from the management style of Justin Trudeau, which was a little more laid back and inclusive. He's not seeking counsel from a backbencher or a minister if he doesn't want it. If I want to speak to you, I'll speak to you. Otherwise, I run the show.
I think it's interesting because you point out something that was almost the first thing on my selection of proofs that Carney doesn't care in the way Canadians are used to or prefer. And I do agree with you. I think that he does care,
In his own way.
but he cares as the head of a
Right.
corporation, as the chair, not even the president, but the chair of a corporation. It feels to me, do you get this vibe that this is just a super high profile board of directors position for him?
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's just adding to his resume and his legacy. I mean, for a kid coming out of a middle class in Edmonton to do what he's done, higher education, Harvard, Oxford, all these massive appointments and jobs along the way. I mean, it is an incredible resume that he has. And this is just another thing to be prime minister to add to it. His legacy, how he looks, how he's treated within the office and globally, that means something to Mark Carney.
Yeah.
And it's meant something to him his whole career.
I think he's not used to the press gallery. That is something that's real apparent. He has no.
Well, it got him in trouble the other day with the line, "Who cares?"
Yeah.
About the Trump meeting. And that was him apologizing. And someone pointed out that he doesn't have time for reporters. And if he doesn't like their question, he's very glib. Look what I said to Rosie Barton. Look inside yourself, Rosie.
Yeah.
And she's one of the most respected journalists. If you don't like her or not, her background is incredible. And she had the right to ask a question, and he shot her down because he didn't like it.
Well, it's funny because he came out of the meeting with Trump and immediately scolded the Canadian press corps in the hallway on the way out, saying, "Oh, way to go, guys! You didn't have any good questions for me. Come on, I could have used your help."
And that is a perfect example. And that's where sometimes he gets himself in trouble, because the people within him working for him don't act like that. But the press don't work for him, so they'll ask questions whether he likes it or not.
Yeah. And he doesn't.
He doesn't like them.
Well, there's no warmth. There's no disarming personality there. And
Right.
like you say, I don't think he feels that he needs it. He managed to get into office without it. So yeah, you're right. He spends more time talking about global frameworks and being on UN panels and net zero.
That's his comfort zone. That's his wheelhouse.
But Canadians right now are suffering. And so that's one of the pushbacks that I get from people. He's a highfalutin business guy flying around the world, meeting with everybody that he can, enjoying a very comfortable existence as prime minister, while we are cutting jobs. Algoma Steel.
1,000 jobs. Oh.
Algoma Steel went down, and I don't even think the prime minister commented on it within a timely fashion. That's very odd.
And this comes a couple months after the government gave them $400 million.
So at least address that.
Well,
right?
it has to be addressed. The people of Sault Ste. Marie in Northern Ontario, they're hurting.
Also, Algoma's a Canadian, what I like to refer to as a Canadian corporate classic.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the icons
Absolutely.
of our country. You'd think that you would at least make a comment on it. The other thing is, people are saying he doesn't, much like addressing the media, he doesn't really account to voters. He came out with a new budget, a totally different way of accounting for this budget.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, including all of the stuff Trudeau had already committed to as new projects.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Never asking forgiveness for that, or even explaining, here's what I've done with the budget that's different than the previous budget. He doesn't have that kind of need to feel accountable, I think, is a lot of the feedback you get. And even the polls are showing that.
I think Mark Carney, his asset sometimes hurts him. His uber confidence, his intelligence, that gets in the way sometimes. He's so smart and so confident that he can't concede that I need to connect with the average person in Canada. The working family who's going to have less trees or less presents under the Christmas tree this year, or maybe a smaller holiday dinner, or maybe not able to travel this year, or maybe, you start going down the list of people, all the cutbacks, and maybe have to wear more sweaters because they don't want to heat the house as much because the heating's too expensive. And
2 million people who use a food bank leading to the holidays this year.
It's staggering. And he says he understands, but I'm not convinced he does understand.
That's one of my next point. He's like disconnected from the working class.
That I 100% agree with.
Our economics do not seem to resonate with him, or resonate with him in a way that he needs to communicate with us. The last thing that we heard about our economics as Canadians was, we're going to have to tighten our belts.
And then we all have to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
But so it all started in the campaign to run up to be prime minister, when they would put a the safety vest and the hard hat on him, and he would go to a construction site, a bunch of oil rig drillers, the steel workers, and they're the men and women that do that job. They are some of the toughest, most dedicated people in the country that do that every day. And he just seems so uncomfortable around them. But when he was in the position where he's around lawyers and bankers and accountants, he's like, bring it on.
Yeah, he does feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk policy. Let me see your spreadsheet.
Maybe he'd be better positioned as the clerk of the Privy Council.
Or the finance minister, or,
Right.
you know, but
those are not jobs for a guy who's been the head of the Bank of England.
and the vice chair of Brookfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is he has like, he has this tendency, and this is the last one on my list.
Okay.
Thank you very much for going through.
No, I'm
all
enjoying
four.
this.
But he has handed off, in the view of many Canadians, and actually in my own view, as we go deeper into these major projects, so many of them are not owned by Canadian companies. There's a lot of foreign
Right.
ownership built into these.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then his explanation for it was dizzying and word salad.
He loves those word salads.
Yeah.
He does love
That's
the
how he
word-
stays so thin. But the reality is we do feel that way. Like if we're going to build in Canadian business and Canadian sourcing resources, tell us about it. Tell us how that's going to be incorporated. Don't just let us find out online quickly that, okay, this is owned by an Australian company. This is owned by, come on.
No,
an
I
American
have to admit, I agree, Mike, but I can't be that surprised as a Canadian because he spent most of his time as prime minister traveling around the world trying to foster investment and spending within the country, from the Middle East to Europe to other countries, to Asia. So he is looking for offshore money to build a pipeline that they've approved from Alberta to the BC coast, to build the Ring of Fire in the mineral exploration of Northern Ontario, to build that mine they're trying to build in New Brunswick, and all the big projects they're talking about, the high-speed rail from Quebec City to Toronto, which has been talked about for decades. He's looking, well, if I can't find the money in Canada, I'm going to use all my experience with the Bank of England and Brookfield and Goldman Sachs and reach out to all these people in the comfort zone, talking to other prime ministers and finance ministers, talking money to get that money into Canada.
I 100% agree with you. I think now it's interesting because I had a moment one day with Deb Schult, former MP and somebody I've referenced on the show as quite, my favorite liberal. So having said that, I said to her, I don't know what that Mark Carney's doing. He's out there flying around the world and highfalutin. And she said, well, what he's doing is taking business people from major corporations around the world and enticing other businesses to sit and do a deal. That really did stop me in my tracks. And and then my next thing after I caught a breath was, well, I hope we see some results from these. And of course, who knows?
In movies, sales is portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio's brilliant scene in The Wolf of Wall Street, where he's cold calling a guy in the penny stock and he gets 10 grand.
Yeah.
And we think that's sales, but money and sales at that level, you can't cold call.
No. And there's you have to be there.
Hi, Dubai. It's Mike and Jim calling.
Let's see your infrastructure. I do get it.
So that's where the prime minister has 3 or 4 or 5 handpicked elite business leaders with them. Prime Minister Wixson, this is so-and-so, this is Nick, this is Christoph, this is Paul, this is Shar.
He doesn't trust his ministers in charge of economy and finance to do this job?
Possibly, but I mean, for Mark Carney's standpoint, I'm the prime minister and I'm doing a business introduction with the CEO of a company in Canada with the money people in the Middle East or Europe or Asia. It just helps facilitate the deal and expedite it in a way that the money gets into Canada. He's trying to get projects built, and for them to be built, the money has to flow in fast so they can get shovels in the ground and get things completed, because unfortunately the things might take time.
Fantastic. But then he puts us on the books as an asset in the future, these major projects that now are mainly foreign owned. It's great that the investment comes here, but then the ownership doesn't remain here.
And I don't disagree, Mike. Yeah. I really don't disagree. But what as a nation, what are our options? We can't turn the financial taps off everywhere because they basically tried to turn their backs on America and the money coming from there.
Yeah.
So that means they have to find it elsewhere. We're a country of 42 million people, thereabouts, with not unlimited resources and unlimited finances. So if they need someone to spend the money to build the high-speed rail and the highway and the mines and the pipelines and the other infrastructure, where's the money going to come from if it's not coming from America?
I like you, I wish I had the answer. I'm glad that I don't, because if I did, I might be even more freaked out. But I think the reason that I want to talk about this today is because I do believe that I don't have the full picture, and here's why. Overall, Mark Carney is not beholden to Canadians in a communicative way. And so I say, Mark Carney, please, you have to communicate with Canadians better if you need and desire the support.
Now, it's funny you say that. Typically, in the next week or so is the end of year before the holiday sit down the Prime Minister does with the major media reporters in Canada. So the top reporters, political reporters, and CBC, CTV, Global, whatever, top podcasters. That is almost a rite of passage in Canada.
Do you think we'll be invited?
Well,
okay. Another message to our Prime Minister. If there's room.
If there's room in your schedule. But, I mean, that is a thing. It's usually a 10, 15-minute conversation. They go down a list of, prepared questions and points and bullet points. So, Prime Minister Carney's not being blindsided, but it's a chance for him to explain himself, wrap up the year before they go on the holidays in the new year, and give Canadians a little insight to what's going on and what's the plan. And as Canadians, we deserve that.
Yeah. I actually think when the opposition is looking like a party by comparison, personality-wise, it's time to step up the game and warm up to the cameras. I don't want a cheesy, lying Prime Minister, but I do think it's important to communicate with your constituents.
Look, Mike, I understand that this is not his comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is not what he's used to. However, there's been many things along his career, from Goldman Sachs to the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, and Brookfield, and all his financial appointments and all the boards that he sat on over the years. You can't tell me that he hasn't done things that he wasn't really a big fan of, or didn't want to go to, or didn't want to be a part of, but it did it because it was necessary. And this is necessary for the nation, for the people, and for the country going forward, that he actually lets his hair down a bit. It just relax for a little bit and have a nice conversation with a reporter.
That's what we liked about Chrétien, right?
Chrétien was the master at it.
And he didn't.
Mulrooney.
He wasn't like the most beautiful. Mulrooney's another one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Willing to have a conversation one-on-one with Canadians and be comfortable being a Canadian. And I think that that's what needs to be. At least we need to have that vibe.
I just had a flashback. There was a great one in the mid-90s, and it was Lloyd Robertson and Jean Chrétien having just a chat before the holidays about different things in Canada. And you went to the holidays and you had a understanding where the Prime Minister was coming from and their future and where they were going. And for Carney, whether he likes it or not, he has to sit down with his public relations team and his media relations team and set up those interviews with the CBC and CTV and other outlets, maybe True Patriot Love, hello, and just spend a few minutes. Hey, how's it going? I know it's tough. Like, this is what we're working on.
Let the reporter say to you, why are you so grumpy with us? Well, I'm not, look, I'm not great at even if he just said, well, I'm not great at the press thing or whatever.
But
that humanizing, that disarming is required.
It is. And that goes back to some of what people are saying, that he's impatient, hard driving, and demanding, and doesn't like being questioned. And to him, having reporters question his decisions, question what his plans are, question what he's doing.
Oh, I get it. I hate it too.
But as Prime Minister, you can't show those cards.
Right.
Because now all the reporters know I can push his button. I'm getting sound bites. I'm getting clicks. This is great.
Yeah, they do it with Trump all the time.
But
do you
have
think
the conversations in Air Force One, and then he's going, "Shut up, piggy," and it goes viral.
You quiet, piggy.
Quiet, piggy.
You know what's so funny, Jim? I wanted to end today's show with telling you, quiet, piggy. But I think
I've never felt so more loved.
But I think we're on the same page. Thanks so much for chatting with me. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Don't forget, subscribe. Tell a friend about what we're up to here. Sorry, Nick, making you struggle.
Comments. We love your comments.
Some of the comments we love. You know?
No. I'll take all the comments. Come on now.
Jim, some of them are hurtful.
No.
I've changed my glasses to borrowing a coworker's.
And meanwhile, our sales guy can't even see what he's selling because he took his glasses.
You know what? He's got it memorized. Thanks. See you next time.
Thank you.